right, let's be honest. Wearing pants sucks. Why should we be stuck in stiff jeans crushing our family jewels? Well, those days are over thanks to Public Rec. They got the deal maker pants, and let me tell you, these feel like sweatpants but look like jeans. You get that 5-pocket style, but all the comfort that you need to go from work to play, no problem. These pants are made with their Workday 2.0 fabric. Wind and water resistant, so they're built to handle whatever you got going on. Clean, classic, and comfortable. These are gonna be your new everyday pants. I've been switching between the deal maker and the day maker pants, and I pair them with the go-to tee, and trust me when I tell you, it's the perfect fit. Plus, Public Rec will let you pick your exact size, waist, and length. None of that small, medium, large nonsense. And with 10 color options, you can find your perfect look. Stop suffering in regular pants. Right now, you get 20% off with code Chael at checkout. That's 20% at publicrec.com. Make sure you use code Chael at checkout. Or, to make it easier, just click below. I love our comment section. I love it because it's very social. I'm a late night guy. Somebody to visit with, which is you guys. And I read every comment, and my question was very sincere. I had paid a very big compliment to Conor, which was not done to be nice. I accurately identify that Conor McGregor is a star and can do a number of different things from an entertainment standpoint that you would be interested in. Whether it was movies, got a lot of promotion going on with Bare Knuckle, and Dave Feldman's very open to the idea, not to mention they got an opponent named Jeremy Stevenson. I mean, like all the pieces are in place, except he's under contract with the Ultimate Fighting Championship. So, would you like to see Conor do MMA? Would you like to see in the Bare Knuckle? Would you like to see him do a movie? And you're not limited to those answers. I offer those options as a way of letting you know that Conor more diverse than anybody else. Okay, great. But that was still my question. Now, within this piece, I told you that one of my problems with it is that Conor is not in a position where he can defend himself properly. And that comment made headlines. There was some of the .coms that I go to that had broken that off. And I thought, let me talk to you guys about that. And I'm going to use Conor as the principal in this storytelling. But that's just one of many names. Conor just happens to be a name that you recognize and identify. I could use plenty of other guys, but the golden rule, the number one rule, right? It's not one of the rules. It's the first rule. Protect yourself at all times. And you can even revisit different wording on that rule for the final decision that a corner will make when they stop a fight, or a referee will make when the corner fails to stop the fight and he has to do it himself, which goes down as a TKO. Which is that this person was no longer adequately defending themselves. It's very important that you understand the concept of this. Now, there is not a scenario. There is not an athlete that is under contract who a guy coming off of a severe leg injury, right? It's very important that possibly you do a comparison between Chris Weidman and Conor McGregor. They were both world champions. They were both the best of their field. One is turned to substances to the point that he has branded himself as an alcoholic. The other is an All-American who is squeaky clean, and not just in front of your eyes. When you guys aren't looking, Chris Weidman is living a good life. So you have one of the most undisciplined guys in the sport. I'm going to put him head-to-head with one of the most disciplined guys. And I'm going to acknowledge their greatness, and then we're going to acknowledge together an identical injury. And Chris Weidman, while doing everything right, while rehabbing, while listening to his doctor, while sleeping at home, while raising children and being a good husband, doing everything that a person could do, Chris Weidman had a hard time defending himself at all times when he's coming off a surgically repaired leg. That's true. That happened. Now we're going to go to Conor. And Conor has not shown that yet. He has not demonstrated that a surgically repaired leg in conjunction with a perfect lifestyle is hard to come back from. But he'll never demonstrate that because that's not the math. That's not the formula here. You have the same surgically repaired leg in conjunction with a very undisciplined lifestyle. So what are we supposed to do with that? What are we supposed to do, not with that assumption, with that evidence that we have? We would be very reasonable to conclude, and again, let's go back to Weidman. Is there a scenario when Weidman came back from that injury as the greatest fighter in the world, as one of the great middleweights to have ever done it? Is there a scenario where he should have come back for a world title? Because that's on the table for Conor. Does that make any level of sense for you? That Chris Weidman, coming off of an injury, should have gone with the absolute best guy? Okay, great. But do you think when you look back that Chris Weidman, having been a world champion and a future Hall of Famer, should have been in 5-round main events? Like, is there any part of you that thinks that would have been the responsible thing to do? To put him in there for possibly up to 25 minutes. Not just impaired. Not just publicly living a life that does not transfer over. You could take plenty of guys that live a rough lifestyle and you could put them in there for 3 rounds. Is there any part of you that feels when we look back on that story, we should have put a 25-minute proposition to a guy who is coming back after a severely surgically repaired limb? And you would say, of course not. But there's not a scenario where Conor comes back and there's ever been so much as a discussion that it wouldn't be 5 rounds. There's never been anybody that suggested he would return and it would be less than a main event. There are suggestions that with the right call out and the right motivation, it could go all the way to a world champion. Those are all fine with me if we are to forget the number one rule. You got to be able to protect yourself at all times. You guys remember when Mike Tyson fought Jake Paul? Now, Mike was older. Mike was removed from training. But you still had a guy that was the absolute best. I mean, can we all agree on this? But do you remember when that fight was happening and we all decided to put our heads down? We all decided to tune in. We all decided to suspend reality and watch this event. Do you remember that? Okay. Do you remember when Mike was walking to the ring and tripped? Do you remember when Mike Tyson was walking to the ring and his knee buckled? Real briefly. And then the camera pulls back and Mike's wearing a sleeve over his knee, which in the history of my lifetime, I've never seen a boxer do. I have never seen, including an amateur boxing competition, I have never seen a boxer compete with a knee sleeve, with a knee pad, with a knee brace, with any type of support to their. I just haven't seen it. So we find out that we've got something wrong with the knee, and we find out that, in fact, it's even got to be protected in a way that no other boxer has had, after we see him stumble walking. I mean, do you guys remember this? And do you remember thinking, is that the kind of guy that we can reasonably believe can protect himself at all times? Okay, great, because then let's go look at the competition. Because a lot was done so that it could go on, starting with they limited the rounds. It wasn't the most rounds Mike had ever done. It didn't tie the most rounds that Mike had ever done. It was the least amount of rounds that Mike had ever done. That made a lot of sense. And then you go look at the time and you look at the rest. You look at all of these things in between that we're not equal to. They were not greater than. They were all cured and curated as a way of being an acceptable form of allowing Mike to do what he has chosen to do. So you allowed one free-willed adult to do what he was supposed to do by having other adults modify it. Do any of us disagree? And when we look back, do we think that Mike should have been there for more time? Do we think there was anything about that match where it should have been longer? Maybe their gloves should have been smaller? Anything that we think that would add to it. So when I make a comment to you that Conor does not have the ability to protect himself, how would he? I mean, what would your suggestion be for how you could reasonably assume that he could? The leg injury? Do you feel that helped him? Do you feel he's better now with these mental things in place? He's a robot now. I mean, please, I'll listen to your argument no matter how stupid you want to sound. Do you have anything historically speaking where somebody within a like injury, let's take the injury out. That's none of our business how a guy feels. Let's take the injury out. Do you have a piece of evidence to support that a guy that hasn't won a fight in 8 years should be put in a position of being in there for the absolute maximum duration that a government agency will allow, which is 25 minutes? Do you believe that? What piece of evidence do you come to us where we should believe that a guy with a surgically repaired leg who leads an undisciplined lifestyle, is that none of our business? Should we just put that out of the way? Great, let's do it. Forget the coke, move the alcohol. Forget the lawsuits, forget it all. Do you have an example where a guy with a surgically repaired leg can return to top-level competition? You don't. But maybe that's not our business. Let's move the injury out of the way. Do you have an example where a guy has taken 5 years off and came back and could defend himself for up to 25 minutes? No, you don't. Do you have a scenario where a guy went 8 years without getting a victory? No matter how active and busy he was, he did not taste victory. Do you have an example where he came back into a 25-minute proposition and was able to protect himself at all times? Of course you don't. Nowhere in history do you have it. So when I make a statement that Conor McGregor is not in a position to defend himself in any sport, any way that you want to do it, I wasn't 100% sure with the script on his side that McGregor was going to get the jump on Jake Gyllenhaal. As a matter of fact, the way I remember that movie with the script on his side, he didn't.